Hello, my name is Mckinzie Gilbert-Malcolm, and I've just finished a course with Savvy Coders to become a full-stack web developer. Throughout the course, we used the Agile method to help keep us on track and make sure we were meeting our goals in a timely fashion. Some other things that we learned along the way was how to host a project on GitHub, save data into MongoDB for our database, and use Insomnia to troubleshoot our database. Today, I'm going to primarily be talking about my Capstone project, which is a single page web application. We'll start with a flowchart and wireframes of the initial idea. While I changed that idea drastically partway into the project, it's still part of the learning process, so we'll go over it anyhow. From there, we'll move into the web page where I'll show you what I actually created, and then we'll take a peek under the hood and check out some actual code in VS Code and see what's going on. All right, let me share my screen here and we'll get started. The original idea here was a philosophical website, kind of like Reddit, where people would present a problem and a possible solution, and other people would be invited to propose alternative solutions. The best solution for that problem, crowdsourced out, would be voted to the top, and if enough people accepted it, it would be the actual finalized solution, unless something else gets voted higher, of course. That's the gist of it. This is kind of the flow chart here. People would land on the home page. From there, they'd have a couple of links where they could go to the About page and find out more about the project. They could contact me as the developer, or they could go into a core values page. This core values page is where it all starts. They take kind of a short quiz to decide upon some personal core values to themselves, and this helps flavor their solution so people can understand where they're coming from, which is an important part of communication is understanding another person's point of view, and this helps that out. From there, everybody is allowed to go to the open source thinking page, which describes how the website works, how to post to the forum, how to vote, and what the leaderboard's all about, things like that. From there, they're allowed to click onto the intangible or tangible ideas. Just like it sounds, some ideas are more philosophical in nature and some are more concrete. Intangible ideas would be things like rules or regulations, the best way to go about making yourself feel good. I'm not sure exactly, just thoughts and ideas that don't actually exist that you can't hang on to. Tangible is a little bit easier to understand. It's like, what's the best way to build a house? What's the most efficient way to get from point A to point B? Is it by plane, by car? And if by car, what kind of car? So there's some different ideas here. One thing that I'd like to know is this kind of started from a pet project of building a self-sustaining community. That's where this whole section comes in over here. Now, if their core values line up to my own close to or near my own personal core values, I think they'd be a good fit to chime in with my own personal ideas. This is my pet project, so I got to decide that. That's why. So they get to learn about the self-sustaining community and the idea behind it, and then they move into different stages of the building process, like how to start a self-sustaining community before the land's even purchased, just the idea stages of it, moving through to actually building on the property, expanding into the final form, and what the final form would look like to include rules, regulations, permanent structures, stuff like that, economy. So that's kind of a gist of everything that's going on. Let's take a look at some flowcharts, or sorry, some wireframes. All right, so this is the home page, pretty standard. We've got a header, a navigation bar with a couple of links. We've got a news feed, which is just some very common topics that are coming up with our leaderboards for the best solutions or most voted upon solutions. And for people who've made the most amount of solutions that were accepted, there are top solution finders over here. Then at the bottom, there would be a footer with just some constant information such as contact me or a blog or I'm not sure, anything that I wanted. From this page, they could click on the About page, which looks very same. It would just explain about the site in a little bit more detail. They can click on the Contact page, which would bring them to this form where they can put in their name, their email, and put a short message and submit it. Well, I didn't end up going with this whole philosophical website. I do end up using this form in my actual current capstone. So then if they're not doing those two, to jump right in, they click in the core values page. And this is where that little quiz would pop up. This Dragon Valley button is hidden. They can always click on this one. After they lock in their core values, they'd click on this and it would carry over into discussions. And if it lined up just right, this box would come unhidden and they could select that one and go into the Dragon Valley project as like a bonus. Now, this would be the actual landing page for open source thinking after they've done all of their presets of core values. The informational will explain how to operate the site, what the leaderboard is, how to post, how to not post, how to vote, stuff like that. Newsfeed would be the most common topics, and then they'd select whether they wanted to submit or read through intangible ideas or tangible ideas. We'll start with the intangible idea list. This would be like a forum style posting in here where they could select links and go into an actual idea and solution discussion and vote on things. I do not have a current button selected, but there should be a post button. I just haven't worked through the best placement for that quite yet, so they can post their own ideas or problems or whatever. They'll always be able to go between tangible and intangible or through all of these, but you can only access the Dragon Valley page by going to the core value page. As I'm sure it is no surprise, the tangible page looks just like the intangible. It is a copy paste essentially. Now, while I did not use this idea, yeah, it was important to understand some layout, and I used some structuring, but I did not use the philosophical idea. Instead, I ended up trying to build a website for a gym owner and get their business off the ground with a real website. So this is what it looks like. I chose the GIJane Women's Barbell Club based out of Cotterville, Missouri. And this is the landing page. Also, the home button would bring us here, as you can tell by the URL. But here we are. This explains a bit about what GIJane's is. I have not filled it in yet, but the bio would contain information about the gym owner, who is the personal fitness trainer. Include things like their training, their certificates, what makes them a great coach, things of that nature. Then we'd have the contact page. Now, we've seen this before in the wireframes, and I am using it much the same way. So I'm just going to fill it out real quick to show functionality, select some basic information, and let's go with a classic hello world without the extra W. And when I hit submit, it's going to bring us to a secret page called messages. So admin can read the messages that are posted to the database. Normally in the finalized project, this would not actually link you to it. I'm just testing functionality, so I don't have to type messages in the URL every single time to go to the secret page. This admin button over here also would not show up. It is just a quick link so I can get to the admin page without typing it in. So let's submit and see what happens. So here we are. We're on the admin page. You can see that there's a name, email, and message. So we are actually getting functionality of people being able to post messages to the website itself, and whoever the admin is can read and respond off of whatever email they want by just copying and pasting this over. I do have to clean this up a little bit, but I'm more interested in the functionality first to make sure that it works, and then I start to beautify things and make it look pretty. One of the functions that I like is this little button over here. When I'm all done reading the message and I've responded or don't want to respond, doesn't matter, I'm done with the message, I click it and it erases it from the database in the website. This is an under construction page to set up available class times, whether it's available or full, and what days it is running. This button does not work right now, but that will be a future update. Then under schedule, this is where those squads would show up. If it was running, it would show the class name, the time that it is running, what days it runs, and whether or not it's available. If it's available, there'll be a little button for people to click on if they're not already in that class so that they can submit a form to request to be in that class. The location is also key. This draws a third-party API request to Bing Maps, shows the location of the gym. We've got the hard location here. I would prettify this a little bit more. It is looking a little rough, but it functions, which is the main part. You'll notice down here that it has the current weather, which is across all the footers. That is also a API call to a third-party weather app, weather database, which just shows the current weather in the area, so whoever's visiting the site knows what to dress for, or what kind of, if they got to bring extra shoes or an umbrella, that kind of thing. While it doesn't directly relate to the functionality of the website, one of the things that I'm really proud of and enjoy here is when I click on this header up here, the background color changes from blue to pink and fades in and out. That's just showing that I'm able to manipulate classes and change the look of things. I would like to adopt that in some feature throughout the site to increase the user experience overall, even though it does not do much currently. I'm going to use the same technique to edit some of these buttons, make some stuff move, maybe some gradients as you mouse over it. That's a future update. All right, let's take a look at some of the code. So this is my main index code, or index.js. This is where I'm importing all the things that I'll be using. And this is a brief look at my code for after we get onto the page, how it's showing up with a render. We're checking out what view it's on, and then whether it's on the contact page or messages page, it will do different things. We got router hooks, which functions much the same way as it's going. This is where we get the weather from our third-party API. One of the things that I'm happy with in this section is normally we have a long block of code like this right up in the main index. It's a bit bulky and hard to troubleshoot, and I don't like scrolling through all the code. So I was able to find a way to get a large piece of code like that and wrap it up into a single function. For example, we're in form sub. That is my script right here. So all of this code right here that allows that form that we saw that we submitted the hello world to allows that to run. And rather than having all of this pasted in the main index, it's just called as a function, which makes it so much easier to troubleshoot and just isolate what I'm working on. When we've got our router running, it has to know how to send the data. This is kind of a cookie cutter to show what type of characters are allowed, whether it's required, what type of data it is for the name, email, and message body. And that's how we're submitting it to the database. Then our actual router, this is where we're making the request. We have a .getAll, which pulls in all of the submitted messages from our database, and that would appear on that admin page where we saw our message when I deleted it. Right before I deleted it, it made this call and got all the messages. We only had one, but it would select all of them. And then, of course, we have our delete method, and that's what allows that little button to operate and delete it out of the database and off of the website. The last thing I'd like to check out is the style.css. So this is the header, the main class that is standard, the color that we saw. And then when it's clicked on, it changes the class to transform state and gives it that nice pink background color. Let's go check it out. So this is the header test, the standard class that we saw in the CSS. And all we do is when we click on it, it changes the internal HTML code to change class from header test into a transformed state. And that is done through a function called change right here, where it is selecting the header test class, and then it toggles it into transformed state instead. So I've learned a lot through this course. I'm appreciative of knowing how to access a database, pull information from a database, make it look pretty through CSS, create all sorts of variables and make it work. And that is what I've got for my capstone. Thanks for joining me for this presentation. Have a wonderful day.